Let's master the art of going with the flow. This evening's lesson is drawn from the meditation manual I'm currently writing, Easy Enlightenment. One of the most famous archetypes of Dzogchen Tantric meditation is seen right here. A gal, the color of a cumulus cloud, sporting in tantric union with her partner, the color of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful, radiant morn. Good evening, Brent. What can we learn about going with the flow from the iconography of this famous archetype? Consider, if you will, the manner in which the gal, the color of a cumulus cloud, appears to be actively sporting in tantric union. This reminds us that contrivance is always trumped by spontaneity. Consider now the peaceful manner in which her partner, who is the color of the azure sky, seems to be passively savoring the same tantric union. This reminds us that not all spontaneity is created equal, and that scattered spontaneity is always trumped by the centered spontaneity that is the effortless and automatic byproduct of a practice of mindfulness and meditation that is correct and consistent and therapeutic. So what's the benefits? Now we've explored the iconography of going with the flow and the source of going with the flow. Let's explore the benefits of going with the flow. When our choices and our utterances and our deeds flow from the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity, our life could feel as blissful as the real or imagined paradise of a Buddha of lore. So you don't got to believe in Buddhas. You don't have to believe in paradises. You don't have to believe in spooky magic. But it's useful if you pay attention to neuroscience. When we try to fight with our central nervous system, when we use this region of our prefrontal cortex to concentrate and this region of our prefrontal cortex to contemplate, thus indulging our controlling tendencies, our rigid tendencies, our blood seems to collect at the bottom of our brain, the base of our limbic system, a region known as the amygdala, the seat of aggression and anxiety that scientists refer to as the filthy McNasties. However, when concentration is replaced with the mindfulness that comes from using our inhalation to access our sympathetic nervous system, and when active contemplation is replaced with the meditation that we experience by using our exhalation to access our parasympathetic nervous system, not only does our blood move from our anxious and angry amygdala over to our empathetic anterior cingulate gyrus just a few centimeters behind our forehead, but having abandoned our resistance, our rigidity, our controlling tendencies, and traded them for flexibility and love and being laid back, we tap into the deeper intelligence of whole brain thinking. Virtually every monumentally successful scientist has had the same experience, where they use their cunning and their expertise and their methodical processes, and then they hit a brick wall. And they examine the data and re-examine the data, and something seems just out of reach, to quote our friend Morpheus from the Matrix, like a splinter in their mind, driving them mad. And invariably at this point, I'm reminded of a line delivered by Robert De Niro in the movie 15 Minutes. You cannot come back to a problem unless you first walk away from it. Invariably, a scientist will then, a fully qualified scientist will then walk away from the problem. Maybe they'll recreate, maybe they'll sleep, maybe they'll make love, maybe they'll do all the above. But when they are in a relaxed state, bam, a connection will be made in their mind. They will have their eureka moment. They will scurry back to the laboratory, make the proper adjustments to the processes they are working with, and 9 times out of 10 produce the sought-after result. Perhaps that is why Einstein insisted that creativity was intelligence at play. Play is not an idiosyncrasy of children that must be tolerated. It is the key to their maturation and intelligence and survival. The enemy of play are our tendencies to be rigid and fearful and controlling. Use mindfulness and meditation to exchange those for the tendencies to be flexible and loving and laid back, and your mind will amaze you. I do look forward to chanting and meditating with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi. Which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Let us begin our formal practice by chanting an excerpt from the Total Space of Vajrasattva, the foundational text of Dzogchen. So quick like a betting, going to hit button 14. Let's chant. The great miracle is not difficult, all qualities and capabilities. Quick commentary. Whether we recognize the benefit of the mundane's pacification, increase, control, or wrathful actions, or the supermundane's full enlightenment. The miraculous is, at one time or another, craved by all. Perhaps, however, the greatest miracle is all one's choices, utterances, and deeds effortlessly and automatically flowing from love's centered spontaneity. And now, in the context of the commentary, let's go back and re-chant this couplet. The great miracle is not difficult, all qualities and capabilities. Through subtle understanding of the authentic condition immediately arise from oneself. Inhalation's awareness, vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random, is the root of authenticity, the key to recognizing both the causes of pain as well as the causes of pleasure. I'm going to adjust this real quick. I like that much better. Is the root of authenticity the key to recognizing both that which we dread as well as that which we desire? In other words, effortless manifesting, effortless protection. Whether you call it Satipassaddhi, Proto-Zen, Chan, Dhyana, Mahamudra, Mahasandhi, Ati Yoga, Proto-Dzogchen, or Trekcho, it is still just mindfulness and meditation. This evening, let's review the basic instructions of mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, whether we intend to or not, we effortlessly and automatically access our sympathetic nervous system. Where is it located? Not in the 3-pound supercomputer between our ears, but rather humbly in the thoracic region of our spinal cord, the part that corresponds with our rib cage. It has evolved to support neither extreme of mind blanking nor active concentration, but instead to simply perceive, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Well, you might ask, if we're not supposed to actively concentrate upon our breath, then what are we supposed to do with our breath? I would suggest to you that we treat our breath the way a piano student treats their metronome. When we notice our body spontaneously inhaling, at least for this first exercise, please silently and mentally recite the 12 syllables perceiving, I should say this 12-syllable observation, not affirmation, but observation, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. Because guys, we can't ignore it even if we try. It's like that obnoxious guy at the party who's had too much to drink, has no sense of personal space, and is right there in your face, bathing you in his breath, boring you with his enthusiasms. Similarly, when we notice our body exhaling, we can silently and mentally recite an additional 12-syllable observation, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. We do not have to force perception. It's automatically wired into our sympathetic nervous system. We do not have to force relaxation. It's already wired into the same mechanism which makes exhalation a possibility. So I invite you to practice this with me for perhaps 12 to 16 rounds or repetitions. A round is one inhalation followed by one exhalation in this system. Now, a completely understandable question is, how do I count to 12 on 8 fingers and 2 thumbs? Are you kidding? I'm going to show you how to do it on just 4 fingers and 1 thumb. But first I must subject you to jumbo face. Consider, if you will, your left hand. Upon each finger, you have 3 sets of creases and a tip. That gives you 4 places to count. And you have, or I should say, 3 to 4 places to count, whether you choose to count just the creases or the creases and the tip. Multiply that by 4, and you have either 12 or 16. I recommend advancing the left thumb during the inhalation only. This is going to be awkward, but play with it for a week or so, and it'll feel like you've been doing it your whole life. I call this Bengali crease counting because I first observed my late Bengali father-in-law using this technique many years ago, when the crust of the earth was still cooling. Now, let's practice. Why, thank you, Brent. Clearly, you are a man of discerning tastes. Here's a quick rule of thumb. What it takes me, because I'm breathing so quickly because I'm doing all this talking, the time it takes me to do 16 rounds is the time it takes you most likely to do just 12. Let's switch gears now from 12-syllable exercises to 3-syllable exercises. Let us review mindfulness. As we breathe in, we are wired to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. But what is it that we could perceive? All together now, if you know the words, sing along. You can perceive sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. You could also perceive, or we could also perceive, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. Furthermore, we could perceive the external or the internal, the physical or the mental, the pleasurable or the painful, the interesting or the boring. We can notice the glorious or the grotesque, sometimes both. Well, that's troubling. What are we to do with all this stuff that we notice? And that brings us to meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, whether we intend to or not, we automatically and effortlessly access our parasympathetic nervous system, also found within the spinal cord. This is located in both the lower lumbar region as well as the tippy top of the cervical region. It is evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Thus, every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. Now, ask a good biologist, and they will tell you that we evolved to think symbolically. Therefore, let us sprinkle some figures of speech upon this proposition. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. The preposition as signaled that a simile was coming down the tracks. Any good English teacher will tell you that a simile is only as good as it is relatable. So, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void? How about something as mundane yet as picturesque as the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although it could be compelling to the eye, is quite intangible to the hand. For this exercise, during mindfulness's inhalation, please silently and mentally recite sitting tall, that we might remind our bodies to generate a vertical traction between our tush and our head, as if pulling it out of a warm, dark place we sometimes stow it. During meditation's exhalation, please silently and mentally recite the 3-syllable verb relaxing. The first fringe benefit of mindfulness and meditation is this. When we actively concentrate and actively contemplate, we get actively cranky. However, when concentration is replaced with mindfulness, when active concentration is replaced with passive meditation, our blood mass shifts, we access our anterior cingulate gyrus. Now, this was unknown in the centuries of yore. At least it was the mechanics were not known. However, for a very long time, the Dzogchen Lamas of Tibet have insisted that the highest love is accessed not through concentration and contemplation, but effortlessly and without contrivance, as the spontaneous fringe benefit of training in mindfulness and meditation. Perhaps that is why this archetype of enlightenment is depicted as beautiful. During this inhalation, please silently and mentally recite, notice this, and during each exhalation, please silently and mentally recite the 3-syllable verb, relaxing. Let's shift gears now from 3-syllable exercises down to the oh-so-convenient 1-syllable exercise. During mindfulness's perceptive inhalation, please silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. During meditation's releasing exhalation, please silently and mentally recite the 1-syllable verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. Now that we've climbed to contemplative cruising altitude, together as a team, let us meditate as transformatively as Obi-Wan Kenobi upon the toasty sands of Tatooine under the guidance of the Force Ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn. And of course, may we all be as handsome as Ewan McGregor. Let's explore this thing that is known in Sanskrit as Tathagata, and it translates into English as Buddha nature or Buddha essence. Samantabandri Karma Mudra translates into English as the all good one, father and mother in tantric union. Why are they called the all good one, and how are we just like them? Due to the eccentricities of our central nervous system, we are literally wired for mindfulness. We are wired for meditation. We are wired for empathy. We have the means and the method to quickly and easily master the Buddha's path. It is said that the Buddha, whether real or archetypical, taught many lessons. It is said that his first lesson was known as the Four Noble Truths, which sounds kind of rigid. The first one is this: there is stress. There are circumstantial stressors, physical stressors, interpersonal stressors, and mental stressors. A stressor is not an indictment. It's a fact of life. Now, not everything is stressful all the time, but it's there. And when it happens, it shouldn't surprise us. It does, but it doesn't have to. One of the benefits of mindfulness is that it makes, in becoming more and more aware of our own stressors and other stressors, they catch us less by surprise, like a ninja caught with the lights on, or a congressman caught with his pants down. There is a very dangerous fable that if we were truly spiritual, we would not perceive suffering. Please do not make the mistake I did in my ignorance. I was so busy trying to explore the empty nature of my body's pains that I forgot to heed its requests. Our body speaks to us through sensations and impulses. And sometimes pain means, please adjust your position. Failure to do so could give us injuries to our joints, some of which are permanent. So listen to your body's requests for assistance. Sometimes the request is as simple as, hey, would you adjust your posture? Other times it's something as simple as, I would like some water. I would like more sleep at night. I would like more fresh air, sunshine, and exercise during the day. I would like more fruits, vegetables, grains, seeds, nuts, and legumes, if you please. We ignore our pain at our peril, whether the pain be physical or emotional. Let us not confuse the Buddha with Emperor Palpatine, who's elated to sadistically torment Lord Vader whenever he could. The Buddha, real or imagined, has no need for us to practice asceticism, thus hobbling ourselves needlessly. Thank you, Kevin. And yes, Brent, you are totally right. Robot Chicken also made fun of that. Let us turn our attention to the second noble truth. Our survival, our primary duality, the primary duality of Buddhism, our survival instinct to both recognize pleasure and pain and to act accordingly with dread and desire to reach and shove, helps us to survive. But when it is overly indulged or when it is sloppily indulged, it causes it multiplies the stressors already present in our life. Fortunately, Although during our in-breath, we might recognize pleasurable emotions or painful emotions, during our exhalation, both pleasurable emotions and painful emotions are just emotions. During our inhalation, we might notice malicious or benign intentions, but as we relax into our exhalation, they're just intentions. If the first noble truth is stress, then its mirror image is the third noble truth, liberation. What is the liberation that the Buddha offers us? Is it liberation from the presence of our survival impulses, or is it liberation from their tyranny? I would suggest to you it's the latter. For instance, shoving or hating is a common survival instinct, and we can easily and effortlessly notice it during our inhalation. But during the exhalation following it, as we relax into that exhalation, that exact same rage we notice during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as mirror-like wisdom. Just as stress is exacerbated by the fundamental duality of dread and desire, likewise, liberation is facilitated by the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, but not in the fun, tingly way, including meditation teachers. 90% are far more rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel than they are flexible, loving, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Therefore, it really should not surprise us that a significant proportion of teachers, some malicious, mostly just lazy-minded, insist that enlightenment is this miraculous, supernatural thing that takes infinite lifetimes to accomplish. But sadly, the Buddha never got that memo. That old Buddha, he taught that full enlightenment could be accomplished as quickly as 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. Many have found that the Buddhist path can be organized in terms of the physical and the mental. The physical path of enlightenment is typified by sitting, learning how to sit comfortably, sustainably, pleasurably, enjoyably, without creating any disruptions, be they physical or interpersonal or vocational. So, when it comes to equipment, I recommend 2 pieces of equipment. Number 1, a Mexican-style yoga blanket, which you can fold up into a rectangle, perhaps 24 by 16 inches. That way it's more comfortable for your ankles. I also recommend using a Zafu, a circular meditation cushion, both of which are nominal. The cushion helps keep the angles of your joints happy, specifically the angles on your joints between your femurs, your pelvis, and your spine. Please consider this photograph of a Theravadan-style Buddhist statue. Notice there are no supernatural qualities. There's no lotus growing out of his skull, for God's sakes. He's not sitting in the unnatural full lotus. He's sitting what some would call the quarter lotus. One lower leg simply stacked upon the other. Ask anybody who's taken ballet class, and they will tell you that you turn out from the hips, for they are ball joints, and never from the knees, for they are simply hinge joints. All of us have smartphones with built-in timers. We can set ourselves 5 minutes to sit once every 12 hours for a week. The second week, we can bump that up to 10 minutes. The third week, the 15 minutes. and so on, until by the conclusion of the 15th week, 75 minutes is no problem at all. Additionally, if you're super clever, in addition to setting the timer, you'll tune into a live stream, either live or recorded. That way, while you're training your body, you will also be training your mind on the path, on the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Oh, look, a question. So, Brent writes, I have had triple fusion back surgery in the T11 and L2 area, and it's extremely difficult for me to sit cross-legged without pain and not fall backwards. Is sitting on a stool or in a chair okay? Yes. Yes, it is. Who knows? I like the idea that our bodies are always changing. And so perhaps someday you can, just because it's easier. But if you have to use a stool, fine. If you have to use a chair, fine. If you're going to use a chair, don't slouch. Sit with your tuchas at the edge of the chair, with your head over your shoulders, and your shoulders over your tush, and your knees over your feet. You want your shins to be perpendicular to the floor. If you ever watch some of the Japanese epic shogun movies from the late 80s and early 90s, you'll see the great warlords sitting like that in all their robes, but they're on a stool, but their posture is perfect. And so that can be a good archetype for you to work with. I think the name of the movie I'm thinking about is Ran, but my ADHD recall is pretty much like a sieve. But dude, I totally respect your limitations. I'm a man of physical limitations too, and I totally respect your enthusiasm. There are elitists who delight in crushing others' hearts, who will say that if you cannot assume a perfect lotus position, you cannot become a Buddha. There are poopheads who insist that if you can't do 108 bow Tibetan-style Buddha bows every day, you can't become a Buddha. Ain't that cute? But it's wrong. Got that from a cartoon from the 90s. The phrase, sadly, not the foolishness. The foolishness, there have always been people, way back in the most ancient of Buddhist lore not only spoke of the Buddha, but spoke of the Buddha's evil cousin. Where Devadatta was rigid, the Buddha was flexible. Where Devadatta was fearful, the Buddha was loving. Where Devadatta was controlling, the Buddha was laid back. Where Devadatta was elitist, the Buddha was egalitarian. Where Devadatta was cryptic, the Buddha was lucid. Where Devadatta was competitive, the Buddha was cooperative. Where Devadatta was cruel, the Buddha was kind. Whether these were real individuals or merely Buddhist versions of yin and yang, there have always been people this way. There's always been people who are governed by their lower brain and who just can't wait to be stupid and cruel. You can find atheists that way. You can find religious folk that way. You can find that in the workplace. You can find that in various hobbies and fandoms. Go online. I dare you. Go to Reddit and see how many gatekeepers there are in virtually every subreddit, poised to be petty and cruel. The seventh and eighth folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path is the mindfulness and meditation that you've been training with, or training in, for the last 3/4 of an hour. Now let's set our attention towards impermanence, towards change. According to the Buddha's meditation discourse, Buddha's mindfulness with breathing discourse, this is sometimes known as right view. One of the cool things about mindfulness is that during inhalation, we see change. We see it all around us. We hear it. We feel it. We smell it. We taste it. Change all the time. All change all the time. With the changing of the seasons, we see the impermanence of a year. With the waxing and the waning of the moon, we see the impermanence of a month. With the rising and the setting of a sun, we see the impermanence of a day. With the swelling and the sinking of the chest, we feel the impermanence of a breath. Ever changing one and all, there is nothing permanent to grasp. With the inflow and outflow of breath, which is natural and uncontrived, we see the change in our emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings, sometimes very subtle, other times thunderously coarse. How interesting it is that 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path pertains to love and kindness. Didn't a guy chop his arm off for Bodhidharma and still become a Buddha? So that, oh boy, that is one of the myths of Chan Buddhism. It's kind of like this. I love Rage Against the Machine. They have a song, Killing in the Name of, which reminds me of its particular flavor of Christendom. Some would describe it as Christofascism. These are people who can't be bothered to study the Bible or emulate Christ. And they choose to love in the name of the Prince of Peace, which makes about as much sense as fucking in the name of virginity. Don't get me wrong, it's a fun way to spend an afternoon, but it's not going to get you anywhere closer to your goal. So, yes, there are people who just love to follow in the footsteps of Devadatta. They can't get enough of it. I lived at a Zen monastery of a very famous, please don't guess his name, of a very famous, now dead meditation teacher. And boy, the cruelty and stupidity and superstition of his students was heartbreaking. I went there because I was lazy. I did not want to reinvent the wheel. And if people have found a way to master the Buddha's path, I was all in. I was ready to go. And the cruelty and the stupidity and that I witnessed was mind-blowing. So yes, there are always going to be there's always oh gosh, what was the name of the guy? Dennis Miller. Before he turned to the dark side, he was a very talented stand-up comedian. He used to say, the worst part about buying marijuana is hanging out with people who smoke marijuana, because invariably the conversation will turn to Bruce Lee. And they will just try to outdo each other with tall tales of Bruce Lee's badassery. It's the same in any group. Whether you're dealing with Catholics or Buddhists or Christians or Jews or Hindus or Sikhs or Taoists or shamanism, or folks into shamanism. There's always going to be a demographic who are just into dueling badassery. There's a wonderful story that I have not memorized, but it goes something like this. Why don't I play chess with pigeons? Because a pigeon will jump on the board, knock pieces over, defecate, and declare victory. Discussing politics for some people is just the same. So if someone wants to be a poop head, politically or vocationally or spiritually or religiously or recreationally, you can't stop them from being a poop head. It's like that wonderful bit you probably heard. What's the meaning of life? Well, I found the meaning of life is to never argue with stupid people. Well, I disagree. You're exactly right. How do you know if your teacher's following in the footsteps of Devadatta? If he sets roadblocks between you and enlightenment, he's probably following in the footsteps of Devadatta. If he's demanding fees or asceticism or high hurdles, he's probably following in the footsteps of Devadatta. Oh, and here's a good one. If he refuses to speak lucidly on a topic and must hide behind opaque and vague riddles, he's probably following in the footsteps of Devadatta. Even in the very large treatise, Shobogenzo by Zenji Dogen, in the early chapters, they tell a very sad tale of a young man whose teacher communicated so cryptically to him that in the student's best-hearted efforts to follow his teacher's advice, squandered decades of his life. Find lucid teachers who follow the footsteps of the Buddha. I love the in my arrogant opinion. It's something a humble person would say. Isn't that funny that, someone like a narcissist would say, in my scholarly opinion, in my perfect opinion, in my enlightened opinion. Yeah. Let us discuss interdependence. Every adult has a sense of other and understands that our choices and our utterances and our deeds do not take place in a vacuum. Directly or indirectly, they affect others. And we are already wired to, as they say in Sanskrit, to give a flying fuck. What is the second fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path? Wishing love. Wishing love is the essence of mental morality. The third fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path could be described as kind communication. Let us seal this evening's practice by returning to our excerpt together. The great miracle is not difficult to qualities and capabilities. Through the subtle understanding of the authentic condition immediately arise from oneself. That's right, we don't need superstition, we don't need ritual, we don't need servitude to a spiritual mentor. The words of the water boy, you can do it. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. you could even support this channel. In approximately 10 and 2/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always. Thank you for your kind words, Brent. And of course, I love the Lego movie where they sang everything is awesome, everything is great when you're part of